Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm autistic. And if you clicked on this video, you're probably autistic too, because a lot of autistic people go through cycles of burnout, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. See, it's nice to hear these things for us because, I'm not gonna lie, it feels kind of lonely being autistic, and sometimes you feel like nobody gets you, despite a lot of our experiences being seemingly universal. I relate a lot to how autistic people talk about society and their feelings about people. So, what is this cycle of burning out? Well, life is kind of just a cycle in general. We have seasons that will affect your mood. We have hormonal cycles, and for autistic people, we just have to deal with meltdowns and if it gets bad enough, a burnout. What happens here? What is a burnout? Well, let's just start here. Let's say the cycle starts here, even though it doesn't really. I just have found that once somebody burns out bad once, they're more susceptible to burning out bad again. So, the burnout phase. We get here when we're mentally taxed to the point where we're just not okay anymore. And just like regular burnout, it's often caused by not getting a sufficient payout when you put a certain amount of effort into something. It could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be whatever. After trying so hard for so long and not getting anywhere and getting stuck, we tend to burn out. See, for us, it's often socially motivated, at least for myself it is. Work is stress and work can contribute to it, but without this social aspect to it, I don't think I would burn out as much. I really don't. In fact, every single time I have burned out, it has been triggered by a friend or something like that. So, what I've found is that it's a result of masking oftentimes. Us masking puts us in a sort of box where it's hard to get out of that box. People fix their mind on how you are and what you can be, and that sucks a lot of the times. What it means is masking doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I'll get to maybe some potential solutions in a little bit, but what burnout actually does, I've just said how we get there, and I've done that pretty quick. What it actually does, and it does more than this, these are just some of the symptoms, the big ones, we have loss of skills. Social, for one, for instance, I have trouble enunciating, talking, and connecting with people. I have weird body language, stuff like that. It's as if I'm how I was before I learned how to mask. So we lose those skills somewhat. Years of speech therapy down the drain while I'm burnt out. People do judge you too while you are this way. But also talent, actual skills, like things you've learned, things you were good at. Your motor skills might not be there the same. It really sucks. As well as increased sensitivity. Sound hurts me more. Textures are more annoying. And a whole list of more reasons why burnout sucks. So, we get pushed to burnout phase a lot of the times because, well, we don't really fit in this world right. So, what do? Well, we go on to this isolation phase, which is kind of the burnout phase, but I'm gonna kind of distinguish the two because the isolation phase is what we need in order to get out of burnout. So, in this isolation phase, for me, it usually starts off as feeling lost and out of place, wrong planet. Pretty much all the things I said before. That's what sends me there, and I am stuck feeling that way when I start to isolate. Don't want to be around anyone. See, I often think that life has little to no meaning, too. Just seeing how everyone else interacts with each other, and the fact that I can't get a piece of the pie for no good reason other than I'm different. It just seems like, alright, it's just we're a bunch of social animals that mindlessly go around and subconsciously do things to one another. That's how I feel. I feel like a lot of times how people pick things out and what they actually like and what they're actually doing originates in the subconscious. And a lot of the times the subconscious is very influenced by social aspects. That's all there is to it. So a lot of times I get very pessimistic and feel like, there's no meaning to life. The things I see people do and the things that they think have meaning just don't have meaning, it seems like. So what am I doing? Where's enjoyment? And it invariably leads to me just being like, I wish I didn't have autism in this stage. I wish I didn't have autism, which I feel for a while. Life would be easier if I didn't have it. I wouldn't be dealing with this again if I didn't have it. People would treat me different if I didn't have it. And I start evaluating how people do treat me and how I treat people. This kind of goes into a sort of rediscovery of self and eventually appreciation. Like, it's like a flip. It's like going from feeling bad to feeling decent about myself. I mean, like, I'm different. That doesn't mean I'm bad. People judge me for things that aren't bad, and they let people who do bad things get by with other things. It's like I try to tell myself they don't know what they're doing. Maybe I just need to present myself different, Just a bunch of things on how to reintroduce myself to society because I do isolate to the point where I'm kind of a hermit. So I go through this sort of healing process where I feel lost to feeling more comfortable with myself, just okay with the fact that I have a strong set of principles that aren't influenced as heavily by other people, for instance. The group doesn't tell me what to think. I tell myself what to think, more or less. I don't know how strong that statement really is, but more so than a neurotypical person, I feel I have my set of principles, and just because I'm around somebody who has a different set of principles, I am not as likely to be like, oh, okay, I'll just do what you do because I'm neurotypical and I follow. No, I don't do that. And I'm glad I don't do that. So I begin to reintroduce myself to society, thinking, well, it could be different this time, I'll do it differently. I can act different, present myself differently, as I already said, but something's still there. You're still autistic. So, maybe you feel it, maybe other people feel it, and you just kind of push through it for a while. It's just like, I'm different, but I can kind of act it, kind of show certain aspects of my personality that I like, maybe other people will like it, and oftentimes it starts off good. It's like, it's hard to be consistent somewhat. That's part of the issue, but yeah, I can make new friends when I get into this phase, but it just invariably and inevitably comes back to being judged for being autistic. That's what it feels like. It's like an invisible disability that people somehow see. Your differences are there, and despite you trying to function with them, and we can function, but can we function well with them? Sometimes it just seems like, no, we can't. And then you begin to be judged for the differences that you have, seemingly unconscious. It doesn't seem like a lot of people realize they're doing it. They just kind of do it. And, before long, you're put in a box. And in this box, you're defined to be this and that. You can do whatever you want to not want to be talked to, for instance, in a patronizing way. No, I'm not a child. I've experienced the world more than you realize. You don't get to just disregard everything I say as if I'm naive, That starts to happen. And then you try to show people, I've done this, I've gone here, I've had this happen to me in my life. That's not true. They don't listen. You're in that box. I put you in that box. You're in that box. And this is the slow decline in energy that leads to burnout, because you try to make people who are supposed to be your friends see you in a way that is more accurate. At least you don't feel like you're being represented faithfully by them, but you're stuck. You're stuck in that box. You're stuck there. So we go and repeat the cycle, and it just seems to happen something like that to me. Just burning out, isolation, rediscovering, reintroduction, and then put in a box again and again and again. So what are some possible solutions? Well, the first thing that we need to start doing is mask less. We gotta mask less. I don't want to be forced to talk like you, because I can't. When I try to talk like you, I have more of a speech impediment. I just need to talk like myself. I don't care if my accent's not the same exactly. Does it matter that much to you? Probably. But I'm saying you as in second person you. When the teacher says you need to do your homework, they're talking to the class. And so, second person you. Not, yeah. Okay, anyways. Masking less should help, but that's easier said than done. And sometimes it won't help. So, that's not the best thing. What this can help you do is find the right set of friends, because what I was talking about before, being put into a box where you don't fit into, that's the wrong set of friends. We'll get back to that in a second, but masking less, I think in the short term it's painful, in the long term it'll be helpful. So that's one thing. Also, finding smaller groups of people might be advantageous. Having a group of 5 or more friends that you hang out with constantly might be hard to compete for attention or something. People might converge to a similar sort of thought process easier and put you in a box, because it happens. Neurotypicals just can put themselves on the same plane easier, and it's easier to get ganged up on. So maybe having a group of 3 people is better than having a big group of people. But That's something that a lot of autistic people will struggle with finding, anyways, is a big group of people to hang out with, despite wanting to. But we could also go and look for other neurodivergent individuals. This doesn't guarantee a good friendship, but it guarantees that you won't be judged for a lot of reasons that neurotypicals judge you for, and we may be able to see our perspectives a little bit clearer than a neurotypical can see our perspectives. So that's good. But you can also just let people know you're autistic if you feel comfortable doing so. I mean, people do, it's a can of worms because people do have their ideas of what autism means without really researching it for whatever reason. I don't know how most people's brains work, but I think you need to like look into stuff to know what you're talking about. A lot of us have this sort of arrogance where we don't look into it, we just know. We just know. So it's basically a can of worms. I don't know if it's your job to educate people, but you can let people know a thing or two about autism and some common misconceptions, but maybe letting them know you're autistic and that is it okay if I don't, reciprocate eye contact as much or something like that will make things less judgmental towards you. They won't think that, okay, this guy has, or girl or whatever, has never been outside because look how they act. No, I'm acting this way because I'm autistic. I've been on soccer teams, I've been on baseball teams, I've been on this, been on that, I've been around people, been around the block quite a few times. It's just, I don't have the same body language as you because I'm autistic. Maybe they don't put us in boxes as much, but on the flip side, maybe they do. Maybe you say you're autistic, oh, you're in this box automatically and you're not going anywhere. So it's kind of a tough call, but the number one thing that I would say is learn when to walk away from a situation. Sometimes I have this tendency to try to fix things that aren't fixable. It's like you can focus on the positives, but do not move your boundaries around for other people in order to try to make something work. If that starts happening, you need to start decreasing the consistency in which you're around these people. So I find that these sort of things will help, especially not moving your boundaries around and masking less. But sure, there's way more solutions, and I'm not going to say that none of these would backfire in some way. So that's just kind of a synopsis of how I feel I've gone through my life in cycles and some things you can do about it if you're autistic.